Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We went to movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained as pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the feeling bit by bit. Sweetie and sweetie, we're here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey,
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Sent Us podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie with an IE.
And I'm Sweetie with a Y.
Week 3 in the quarantine.
It's only week 3.
I think so.
I feel like we've been in quarantine for longer.
I know.
Because there was the time that I was like, we can't see each other because I think you're contaminated. And that was like a week or two before actual.
Those good old days.
Suddenly, those
good old days are gone. Yeah, so I think it's week 3, let's say. Hey, happy April. Hey, happy April.
Fools yesterday.
Fool. Yeah, did you get any good April Fool's jokes
No,
in?
I feel like I saw a couple like sort of related to Corona. I'm like, it's just like, don't do it. And this time we can't afford
definitely not.
jokes.
But I heard one guy like replaced his
Pranks.
kid's cereal with dog food or something.
Ew, do they eat it?
Funny.
That's mean. That's sad.
Maybe in milk it wouldn't be that bad.
Ew. Yeah, you would know because you ate dog bones when you were a baby.
True,
Probably liked
true
it.
story, guys. I really did. Continuing on with this quarantine, we are separate again, and we're getting into our groove with this separate but equal podcasting. Not too bad. We can see each other. That's cool. And I feel like we got the sound down, so that's awesome. So Sweetie was like, you should pick a movie that's uplifting because it's a down time. And I said, okay.
No, because the choices she gave me were like Space Camp, which I've talked about before, was like one of my number one most traumatic movies when I was little, and why I never want to go to space, and why I never wanted to go on game shows because I was afraid I would win a trip to space camp, and I was like, no way, guys, no thanks. So obviously I'm not picking Space Camp, whatever.
I mean,
and then I forget the other one you suggested.
Well, all the ones in my list are pretty like down and out. I had like Regarding Henry, oof, sad. American Tail, ooh, tearjerker. Space Camp, yes. So I don't really have any like too many good uplifting ones. I mean, that's just not kind of what we have left. But what we did have left was
super uplifting.
If you want to say action movies are uplifting, was a Mission Impossible.
Best hype music ever.
So good. So Mission Impossible from 1996. So we got a mid-90s movie. This is as studios want to do nowadays, transforming, and there was like a run of this in the 90s for sure, transforming like 50s, 60s, and 70s TV shows into a movie franchise. Not all of them have been successful, that's for sure, but the Mission Impossible one, I would say, is probably the most successful, or one of the most successful. So this was the start of this, and there now have been like 6 or 7, I want to say. And we have seen all of them. Okay, we did not see this one in the movie theater because we were too young, and we did not.
The second
one we did not, and that one is critically panned as like pretty bad. But then by the third one, which I believe is the Kerry Russell one, right?
Yeah.
So by the third one, like, I don't know, they just like hit their stride, and those movies have been like amazing. Everyone really exciting, good plots, good people in it. Obviously the stunts are like out of this world, and it's like, it seems like every iteration, every one, and they seems to come out every couple years, just like tops the next one. So we've been like super pumped about this franchise. We've seen all of them in the theaters. I remember that actually, the Kerry Russell one, so whatever the third one's called.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
You're in the front row.
front row. Our sister was in town. We went out to dinner in North End.
I was in town.
You were in town. Liz and I lived together. Yeah, and we went out to dinner in the North End, and got like oysters. Yeah.
No, that was Harry Potter.
Oh.
This one, you guys picked me up, and then we were like, I think we just wanted to go to a movie on a
Okay.
whim, and we were like in the Boston Common, and we're like, what movie should we see? It was just like an old school, like, what's playing? Oh, Mission Impossible. And I was like, never seen those. Okay. And I had like my bag with me or whatever.
Oh.
And we were like, yeah, front row because we, got tickets. It was a big movie, I guess.
That was nuts. So I do not recommend seeing this in the front row anytime. It's just really too intense and so loud. I remember it was so loud. I thought like my eardrums were going to burst. It was so intense in there. And now every time they come out, we're always like, yeah, let's go. And we did see the last one. Last one was amazing. And
Wait, is there one coming up that
there is
we
a new
were
one
excited about?
No, but there is a new one like in the works.
But I remember seeing like a preview with like the girl who wears the yellow dress and the snowsuit.
Rebecca Ferguson.
Did we see that one
Yeah.
already?
Yeah.
We saw that.
Yeah, the snow one, remember? And also that was one with Henry Cavill, and he's like the other agent trying to like kill him. Yeah.
And he like pumps up
Yes,
his muscles
yeah,
in the
yeah.
bathroom.
It was so
Okay,
good.
Cool,
It was
cool.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
So anyway, the franchise started with this, 1996. So we were quite young and did not see this in the movie theater. So we would have saw it like much after. And I remember, I mean, I'm a huge spy fan. I think Sweetie is too. Like we love anything spy genre. And, this obviously fits right in there. You could say like the Bourne Identity kind of movies do too. But like I never liked those. I don't know why. I just didn't latch on to those.
Those are they're filmed in an annoying way that it's very like it's too fast.
Yeah.
The camera motion's like too fast or whatever. But this reminded Mission Impossible. Wait, when did Sneakers come out?
94, I want to say.
Okay. I feel like, and I know Mission Impossible is based on a TV show, but I think that they stole a lot from Sneakers. It just feels very Sneakers
Oh, definitely,
to me,
definitely. Right. So we love that movie, obviously.
Right.
So, right in our genre. And so I remember I stumbled upon this like on TV. I think I knew about it at the time when it came out. I mean, I would have been like 13. So in like middle school going into high school almost. So like it was kind of a big deal. I remember when it did come out and like the scenes are very like iconic and famous in this now. Mm-hmm. And everyone was talking about them as they kind of do, which with all of these, because there's always these crazy stunts in it. Right. So then I remember seeing it on TV and being like, I like this movie a lot. I do not understand it at all. Like I have now, and I do get it now, obviously, from watching so many of these, and obviously watching this one many times. I do, but it took me forever to figure out this damn plot.
You can do the synopsis then, and we'll see how you do. Because what I did, and what I would recommend is following along with an IMDb synopsis, so that you can like check in on what you think happened versus what the synopsis says happened. Well, because I missed a couple of things where I was like, oh,
right. I'm sure I missed some too, but it's like, okay, so if you watch a lot of spy stuff, the main thing is like moles, right? Or read spy stuff. It's very similar. There's always like a mole. So you always have like this organization, which is obviously filled with intense amount of trust you have to have for people, right? Like in your group and who you're working with. But there's like always someone who's like a mole and trying to like double cross somebody else, or in spy world, a double agent, which means like basically they're working for like both sides because technically they're like working for themselves. It's like, it's so crazy. And like, that's how it is in the real world too. If you ever read like real spy stuff, like it's the exact same. They didn't like make up a lot here. There really is a knock list. I mean, there are like knock agents. It's crazy. So that always gets kind of nuts because you have people you don't know like whose side they're on and like who's the mole. And like in Mission Impossible in particular, I feel like there's always this theme of like whoever the superior is, so whoever like leads the CIA is like always like doesn't trust Ethan Hunt, or like he's always going rogue, and then he always has to circle back and like prove he's like,
but I think they don't
good.
Trust him because of this.
Yeah.
Like, isn't this his like origin of like why he became this kind of, James Bond, like, rabble rouser who like defies authority or whatever?
Well, and I think for the Ethan Hunt character, he's always coming like in and out of being an agent, I feel like, because in all the movies, I feel like he skirts being like, okay, I'm going to be an agent. Yeah. And then he's like, I'm done. I want to have a normal life. And in the franchise, he like meets a woman, and they try to have this normal life, but he always gets like sucked back into it, which is just like the nature of his character, I think. But But yeah, I really like it. I mean, I don't think this is my favorite one of the franchise, but it is a very good spy movie. I feel like it's done really well. It is directed by Brian De Palma, this first one. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. That's the other thing about I think that for these movies, these like spy franchises to be successful, usually they're helmed by like pretty notable directors. Yeah. James Bond included, you know, when Sam Mendes like took over that, I feel like he elevated it, right? Yeah. And like same kind of thing with this, like Brian De Palma, obviously Carrie, he did a lot of really good movies that I enjoy. And
Scarface,
so
I didn't know he did Scarface.
One.
I forgot he did
Of,
Scarface.
like,
I knew he
up
did.
And down, like horror, and then like the mafia. But yeah, Brian De Palma, and then J.J. Abrams did the third one that we saw, and then the most recent ones are done by the same person, right? But not J.J. Right? I don't know. Maybe it's not someone.
Yeah, we should look that up, but. And it, I find these, like Jimmy asked me when we were watching this, he was like, oh, is this a lot like James Bond? And I would say not like totally, because I find, I mean, obviously you have the difference of like American CIA and that's a part of James Bond, but I feel like James Bond works alone, and this is always more like missions with team members, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that it's true in that they're both like private sects of the CIA and the MIA, like MI5, like respectively.
Right.
And like they're like these secret branches that like the government pretends don't exist or whatever.
Which spies like have to be. I mean, that's like the only way they can kind of get their job done.
This kinds of spies.
This
like,
particular kind. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think regular CIA agents, are not this. I mean, we acknowledge that they exist, I think, for the most part.
Well, so that this is like, so this knock list, so what this whole movie is about, and that stands for, I looked it up, non-official cover. So it means like if you get caught, if you're a regular CIA spy and you get caught, you ever seen the movie Bridge of Spies when, they catch that guy and basically
I have not. Okay, but don't spoil it. You're going to spoil it?
I'm not spoiling it, but they catch a spy and they do like a trade with the Russians with one of our spies, and that's what happens in like spy war games. If you're like an official spy and you get caught in another country, like they will trade you out for somebody else that we have. Mm-hmm. So it's like a swap deal. But with these like knock agents, they are basically like, you are not connected to any country. You are connected to a country, but the U.S. will never say that person is working for us. So if you get caught, like the other country will kill you. And it's known that like that's what they will do. So that's a real thing. And if you remember that like Valerie Plame kind of issues in the, I want to say like early 2000s, when it got revealed like her cover name and everything like that. And that was like in the Bush administration, like a really crazy thing. Oh. She was a knock agent. So, so it's a real thing and like really sketchy, but it's just a known thing that most countries have these kind of like unofficial official spies, I guess, if you want to call it. And that's what started this whole movie. So Mission Impossible, as I said, 1996, starring the one, the only Tom Cruise. I think for having like a really good spy franchise, you have to have like a really good lead spy person. Mm-hmm. And for James Bond, they obviously keep switching them out, but they've stuck with Daniel Craig for a while. But for this franchise, they went with Tom Cruise, and I think it was a really good idea. This role is like totally made for him. As I said in my Instagram story, like he just, that intensity that he has in every role, which totally does not work all the time, works really well.
For this, it does.
Oh yeah, it's perfect.
I didn't realize he's such a baby in this.
I know.
It's like he's essentially Top Gun Tom Cruise, and I was like, whoa.
Well, no, because this was around Jerry Maguire time, though.
But he looks like as young as he did when he was in Top Gun.
Well, he's
he just like
ageless too. And they always say about this particular franchise, he does all his own stunts, and he's always like breaking bones and like almost dying. But
they didn't really have a lot of. So the first one I would say is probably the least amount of stunts, right? Like I feel like he didn't start getting crazy with the stunts until the second one is when they did that like VMA parodies or whatever with his like stunt double. And This one I think is the most spy-y
Yeah.
of all the Mission Impossibles, the least action-y.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see its humble beginnings.
And that's why it can be kind of hard to follow along, because I feel like it got almost too spy-y. Like if you read spy books, like they can get so confusing, and this reminds me very much like of a John le Carré book. You're just like, what the fuck is going on? So obviously he's great in this, so good. Jon Voight, whoa, good to see him. I don't know like what stuff he's been in recently, but
who was like, I know who could be a spy. Jon Voight, like he's like such a lumpy like lard butt, and he's like trying to like hoist himself up on a helicopter. Give me a break.
But he's so easy to hate. Like you just want to punch that guy's face. He just is annoying.
I feel like with these movies, you know the twist coming 8,000 miles away. If you don't know he's the bad guy in the first like 2 seconds, sorry.
But you know that
guys.
because you know he's the bad guy, so you can look at. I mean, it's like
it's anytime they have a well-renowned actor who it plays a pivotal role and then dies early on in the film, it's chances are.
Well, there's that thing too.
It's either Liam Neeson or John.
Oh, totally. But I feel like it's almost a Sixth Sense kind of thing. Like when you know the whole movie and the plot and you rewatch it, you're obviously seeing kind of like these little hidden things that as a first watch, like you wouldn't really catch on to. So I don't think you would totally see it, but I don't think it's like that well hidden either.
I don't know.
Either.
Yeah.
And then in the beginning, you have like really like a star-studded cast that, we'll talk about it, drop like flies. So you have Emilio Estevez as like a fellow spy.
What I like to say, where'd you go, Emilio?
Where'd you go? Yeah. Kristen Scott Thomas, so real kind of big in the 90s when she was in The English Patient. She kind of like rocketed to fame. I don't think she's done as much now, but
wait, who is she?
She is the spy who he like Sarah, the spy who he is.
Okay.
Yeah. Jean Reno, I feel like that's how you say that guy's name. French actor, always kind of a rough around the edges kind of guy. Usually, also I think bad.
He wasn't on the team in the beginning, though, right?
No, he's on the second team he makes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Ving Rhames, who is amazing in every movie I've ever seen him in. I love that guy so much.
But he's like always himself.
He is.
And it's like he's never been like a different character than like Ving Rhames. And we're always like, he's the best.
He's so good. I mean, we will do. Okay, he's great in this, and he's great in the Pulp Fiction, right? Good in that.
Yep.
But my favorite role, if you guys have not seen this, and we are going to cover this, the movie Dave. He is the Secret Service officer named Dwayne, I think his name, and he is so good in it. He's the same character, and he's like so stone faced, whatever. But like the turn at the end, oh my god, it's just so good, so good. Yeah. And then beautiful Vanessa Redgrave. Oh my god, she is like. Watching her deliver dialogue, I could just like do that all day. That woman is like perfect. She's like classic British actress. She's so beautiful. She's almost like stunning blue eyes. So she's from the Redgrave sisters. So her sister is Lynn Redgrave, and then her daughter was Natasha Richardson.
And Jolie Richardson.
Yeah. So when I first was thinking about this movie, I thought it was Maggie Smith in that role for some reason. And you can kind of like confuse them, I feel like sometimes, because they're that same caliber of like British actresses. But she's so good in this. Love it.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's it, right? Those are like I didn't know who the what's her fucking Claire.
She's like some like model. She actually, creepily enough, she look like Angelina Jolie?
Yeah.
And you're like, and then she's like married to Jon Voight. So then I went on like a weird rabbit hole where I was like, oh my god, is that Angelina Jolie's mother? And I was like, wait, of course not.
What
this is from
country
1996.
was she supposed to be from? I feel like she was like ethically like ambiguous hot girl. Like I didn't like understand like who
ethnically.
Who she was. She French?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it was weird. And like always they're like, oh, I mean, to be a spy, I feel like you have to be fairly like you have to blend in with the crowd. She's like this weird like alien model with like giant lips, and people are like, hello. I'm like, you stand out like a sore thumb.
She bugs me like so bad in this.
Yeah, so much.
And
another one that I thought was pretty obvious from the get go.
Oh, totally.
Were you in the car? What?
No, I wasn't in the car. Oh, that's weird. Like you didn't die.
The car blew up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm glad they didn't lean too hard on like the romance angle in this, because it just would have been so annoying to me. And I feel like they try to do it, just like little bits of it, but they don't totally go through it, which is good.
But then Jon Voight like accuses him of like coveting thy neighbor's wife.
Well,
and I'm like, what?
I guess I read in there was like a scene I think that they cut out where that was a little bit more implied, like a little bit heavier. So maybe that's just so weird when they edit movies and they like don't, they take out key scenes that would explain like someone's reaction or a bit of dialogue, and you're like, oh, like that's interesting how they do that.
Yeah. Think about it, guys.
Yeah. But I mean, but great cast. And then if you kind of keep watching these, so Ving Rhames ends up being, I think, almost in every one. But he basically has a new team for every like movie other than Ving Rhames. And there's always a new like director of the CIA, pretty much, I think.
Simon Pegg, I think, has been pretty consistent too. He's
a great addition.
And then this new person, what'd you say? Sarah Ferguson?
Rebecca Ferguson, who I love. I have such a girl crush on her. She's so amazing. So really good. We're gonna try our best with the synopsis here. We'll see.
I got this.
You
got it because you understand it. You said.
I mean, I feel like I finally have it. 25 years later.
All right, then I want you to take the lead. Then.
Okay. I should have made like a board like Claire Homeland.
Now
style.
you're backing down. I knew it.
Oh, I got this. Hold on. Come on, computer. Ugh, so annoying. Sorry, it's gonna happen.
Edit this out.
You don't need to, guys. This is like real life. Okay, here we go. Okay, so it's time for the sweet synopsis. Yeah,
sweeties.
1, 2, 3. Toast.
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 That part. I don't get it. You'll have to explain that to me.
Well,
later.
me neither, but like it's just about like the level of sound. I don't know why they call it toast, but like it's great.
My favorite line is, and this is like the classic Tom Cruise freak out. Wake up, Claire! Jim is dead. I just want to like scream that at people when they're being dumb.
Him like freaking out in that scene. I was like, oh my god, man, so like good. That is like if I had to like paint a picture of the classic Tom Cruise freak out, like I would screenshot that and be like, put it on a wall and be like, here you go. This is like his acting range right here. Wake up, Claire. So good. Okay. Kiev.
Hey, you stole that from me.
Kiev.
You heard me warming up.
The Ukraine, right? That's where Kiev is.
Yeah.
You are kind of dropped into like a spy mission. So you're seeing like a guy roughhousing like some other guy trying to get the names of some like his contact or something like that. So they're like beating him up, and there's like a girl passed out in the bed, like whatever. So the guy gives the name, and then they make him take like a poison shot. I think that's what that was. And he like collapses, and then you realize it's basically like some sort of spy op, and they made like this fake room, and you have Tom Cruise, who is this agent Ethan Hunt, all dressed up like in a different
do you want to say Ethan Hawke every time
I
you say that name? I can tell you like struggle with it every time.
So they get done with this mission, and they're like, sweet, good job, everybody. And there's like a couple people. So you realize you're in like a spy kind of world where these people are working. So then scene switches to Jon Voight, who is Jim Phelps, on a plane, and he's getting, this flight attendant comes up to him, and he's like, Mr. Phelps, would you like to watch a movie? And he's like, I'm more interested in the theater. How about the blah blah theater? And she gives him a tape, and it's his mission, right? So the big thing with Mission Impossible was that you would receive a mission via like a recording. And I think from that show, if you remember, it was like, this message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. So that was like a big deal. That doesn't happen in this one. They don't quite carry it that far. But Jim...
It does.
It self-destructs?
It says that.
Oh.
Yeah, and then you see the little smoke
poof.
coming out of the thing.
Oh, yeah.
I love the poof. Yeah. The poof's the best.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry. So he gets his mission, and he gets the team he's going to be working with. So his mission is that this guy in Kiev is getting knock list. So the knock list is basically kind of what I was talking before, a list of spies, these non-official cover spies that exist for the U.S. and they are all over the world, and it's this list that has like their code names and their real names. So this person, like Dimitri, whatever his name is looking to get this list and from some source and sell it to somebody else, I think. So they need to like intercept it. So Jim's like, okay, sweet, got my team, goes to Kiev and gets everyone together, and they plan to basically follow this guy. They know they're going to let him download this knock list because it's like in a computer in some embassy or something. And they're going to let him do it and think he's succeeding, but then like intercept him and take the list, right? So everyone...
They need proof that he is downloading it or something.
Yeah.
So that they can bust him.
Right. So they all have these little jobs. So you have Ethan, who is the point person, which it sounds like he always is. So he's like the main person. And he pretends to be like a U.S. senator. He dresses up in a mask. And then there's a person, then there's a couple women in it who provide different like sorts of skills. You have like this woman who just does transportation. You have a woman who's like the surveillance. You have the
woman who stands also inconspicuously on the steps with sunglasses, just staring into the distance.
I know.
Okay.
Then you have like a computer person, so that's the Emilio Estevez character, and then you have Jim Phelps, who's kind of the leader, and he like sits in a room with a computer, sort of like monitoring everything. I don't know.
Yeah, what's his role?
Yeah.
Why is he pulling all the way? Why is he the boss?
Yeah, totally. So they kind of get the mission, and they get the guy downloading the knock list. They have these like special glasses that are actually cameras, so they like set that up. In the room, they get the guy to download it, and then they're getting ready to follow him, and then all of a sudden the mission just like implodes, and you have everything going wrong. And Jim, the main guy, is like abort, because the agents start getting killed. So you have Emilio Estevez gets like basically stabbed in the eye with like something to do in the elevator shaft.
It was spikes in the elevator shaft.
Very, very crazy. I've always seen this on TV, and I've never actually seen the real scene where like it goes through his like eyeball. I was like, ah. And then so they're getting knocked out one by one. So you have the Ethan character kind of seeing this all happen, and he also aborts the mission. And even Jim Phelps, who's the main guy, gets killed. So he's like wearing a device where he can see, Ethan can see. They all have like cameras that they can see what's happening with the other person. And Jim is like gets shot and falls over a bridge. Like Ethan can't save him. So Ethan is left with the only one left on this mission. Even the guy who they were trying to get the knock list from ends up being killed. So somebody like killed him, took the knock list. So Ethan's like, fuck, better call in. So he calls in. He's like, my whole team's dead. He calls Langley. He calls the main CIA guy, Kittredge is his name. And he's like, my whole team is dead, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, meet me in whatever, this cafe in an hour. And he's like, you're in Kiev? And that's like a bad sign, because why was this director of the CIA in, the country or in the city where this mission was taking place? So obviously Ethan is a little bit frazzled. He's just lost not only all of his coworkers, but they were his friends as well. And he is kind of getting the idea that like something is up. Because, Ethan wasn't born yesterday. The guy, despite some decisions he makes, he's pretty smart. He knows
he's a
what's
spy,
up.
man.
Yeah, he knows what's up. So he goes and meets this Kittredge guy, and he, Kittredge starts to tell him that this whole mission was actually just a way to get a mole, a known mole. So as we were talking about, a mole being like someone who is, in an organization, but it's basically spying for somebody else. A betrayer, a traitor, if you will. And this whole mission was a fake knock list that they made up, and the whole mission to like film this guy getting it, that he was a plant. He worked for the CIA. So it's really just to like flesh out this traitor. And he's determined, Kittredge, that because Ethan is the only one left, it has to be him. Now that is like, I don't know. I guess that in a very simple way, that could be a way to determine it, but like...
Well, I think we need to do like a little more investigating on like follow up. Let's collect the bodies here. Let's do some proof here. Like, we only know from, how do they even know those people died aside from the one that got blown up?
Yeah.
Like, how would they have known Jim Phelps died? Because
Ethan told them. Yeah.
But it wasn't like it was broadcasted somewhere and they saw this weird footage of him covered in blood, even though he got shot with a sniper gun.
Yeah.
He's like, I am bleeding everywhere.
Well, even that video was so bad. Like, clearly he pointed the gun at himself and like he didn't really shoot himself, but like I was just like, he did.
Oh, I thought he did
in the arm.
Because he has like a sling later.
Yeah, maybe he did shoot himself in the arm. Anyway, so and then there is some other stuff too. So then they find that like Ethan's family just got like this a bunch of money or something. So anyway, so the whole thing is that this mole is basically in contact with this arms dealer in in Czechoslovakia. Was it Czech Republic then? I forget. In Prague. Called Max, and they want the necklace. So this mole is basically going to steal it for them. So that was like the whole thing with the mole. And so they figured out that, okay, if Ethan has just came into $150,000 or whatever, like I bet this Max person. So they kind of like start putting stuff together. But Ethan's like, whoa, it's not me. And now he's got to figure out who it is so he can clear his name, right? So he's able to get away from Kittredge by using, there's so many cool gadgets in here in this movie. We'll go over them, but like this one that very James Bondy that Emilio Estevez gives him in the beginning, which is basically a slice of gum that is a one green side, one red side. A slice of gum. A piece.
Is that what you call it?
A piece of gum. You put the two sides together and then it turns into a bomb. So he puts it on this fish tank. It's this really cool scene. The fish tank explodes.
Why is that fish tank so big?
I don't know. It's pretty cool though.
Like that much water? Why was there so much water in there?
It's a big tank.
Yeah.
So he gets out of there and he's like, okay, I'm on a fucking mission to clear my name, basically. So he goes back to the safe house and starts doing some research. What does he find out, sweetie?
Well, so his main objective here, I think, is to figure out who the mole is by working backwards, I guess, and figuring out, like he knows that this Max person is not getting the real list, so he needs to find them. He needs to track them down first. So he uses the 90s internet, which, although deceivingly simple, looks very complex to my brain. I just feel like you have to type in a lot of like code, and you're like internet, and then like like I don't even know what the fuck he was doing.
Yeah. But
basically, he finds out that the code name for this guy or whatever that the mole is Job 314. And so he's like trying all these things, these passwords to like figure things out on the internet. I'm still unclear like what queries he was running to like he kept being like and like typing things.
Yeah,
in.
Was it like a Bible chat room or something?
Well, okay, no, not yet, because then he looks up and sees the Bible and he's like Job 314, and then he puts it together that it must be a reference to the Bible. So he pulls out that Bible and then like starts like getting into the Bible message boards, the boards on the old internet, the net. I bet Angela, what was her last name in the net?
Angela
Bennett. I am Angela Bennett. I bet she was on one of those message boards, Well, Mozart's ghost, but not Bibles. But anyway, so he goes to all these boards and like leaves messages with Job like verses or whatever to try to like coax this Max person to make contact.
I like how he's up all night and like literally like does it in every language, and then it comes back as English. He must have been like, shit.
Stop showing
Did all that work for
Ethan.
nothing?
He was like, no, I'm gonna write it in German. No, I'm gonna write it in Swahili, and it's like it's too crazy. So then he's like hallucinating, and it's very late in the night, early morning, and he had done a trap outside his door so that he could hear if someone was coming. So he hears somebody walking on broken glass. And he hallucinates Jim Phelps. Surprise, it's actually Claire, who he thought was in the car with that other girl. Turns out she wasn't. And at first he doesn't trust her at all and is like, where were you? What happened? Blah, blah, blah. And she like is like, I forget even what excuse she uses, but I think it's flimsy as fuck as far as I know. She's like, you said to find him on the bridge or something. So I went and like I'm here now because it's 4 a.m. and that's 400 hours is what Jim said or whatever. So he's like, okay, I guess I trust you, even though I'm like, I still think that was a flimsy alibi, if I say so. But so they kind of team up now to figure out. So he kind of clues her in on the plan. At that moment, Max, or who they believe is Max, reaches out via message from one of the postings and tells him to like buy a pack of cigarettes and ask the person at the bench for a match or whatever at this place. So he gets the old ski mask thrown over his head, thrown into a van or whatever. I don't know. I kind of looked away for a second and he had like a weird ski mask on with like one eye hole sewn shut. So
It was so creepy.
Why was it?
Looked like a
Did they make it just then and there?
yeah, it was like a creepy sock puppet, like
It's so weird.
ski mask or something. Looked like a horror movie. Yeah, so because they don't want, he can't know the location of where Max is because no one sees Max.
Right. But we see Max, and Max is a woman. I love that. I hate these reveals that are like, dun dun dun, it's a woman. Like, when is that going to stop being a thing, you know? But anyways, yes, Max is
Cool
a
that
woman.
they did it, though.
Vanessa Redgrave is this arms dealer, apparently. Go her. Go Max. So they talk for a bit, and he's like, listen, that list you got isn't real. Like, it was... it's like being tracked by the CIA. Like as soon as you start downloading it or whatever, they're gonna come in and get you. You'll have approximately, I forget the amount of time that he says, but
Between
it's bad.
it's very the range. He's like 30 seconds and 10 minutes or something. The range is quite quite large.
It is large, and he's right because they show them at the same time. Kittredge like team coming in, closing in on them, wearing like weird white lab coats. Why are they wearing that? But so then Max believes them, and then they flee, and then she agrees to say like, okay, and Ethan offers something else. So he knows that she wants the list, the real list. Where is the real list? At Langley, the head of like where CIA is or whatever. So Ethan's like, I'm going to steal that list and get it to her, and then she'll give me the money. And
Well, he doesn't want the money.
he doesn't want the money, but he wants this mole person.
Yes, the identity of the real Job.
But why does that? How does that give him by finding the real list and selling it to Max? How does that make the real Job come out of the shadows or whatever?
Well, I think the real Job doesn't know that list was phony, so she can arrange like a meeting to pay him, or something. It was something like that, and then he was going to be able to come out. Or did she owe him more money or something? I don't know.
See, that's where I'm like,
fuzzy on
that's
that.
where I start losing it. But yeah.
But it's like those details don't totally matter, right?
Yeah. So where are we? So Max. What was I just saying? I don't even know. Where are we?
So he is going to go get the real Knockless, which lives in Langley, Virginia.
And,
Hello?
Oh, well, I thought you were taking it.
Okay, I'll take it. So he's got to get the real list in Langley. So where the CIA headquarters are. But he needs a new team, right? So he decides to, now he's this disavowed CIA agent, which means like, basically he's like rogue on his own. The government or whatever, the organization doesn't want anything to do with him. So he's going to go look up other people who are in the same position as he is, and offer them a lot of money to like help him out. But he doesn't tell them what the actual like mission is. He tells them just where they need to go. He doesn't tell them what they're stealing. So he has Claire, who is the wife of Jim, and who decides to help him out instead of going back to the CIA. And then he finds the Ving Rhames character, who I forget what his name is.
Is this something like weird or is it something normal?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good question.
So he's like the computer guy. And then you have this French guy who's basically like the heavy. So the guy who does like the violent stuff or the heavy lifting stuff, strength stuff.
Luther
And
is his name.
Luther. Yeah. So they go to Langley and they kind of, you learn as this mission proceeds kind of how they're going to steal this necklace, right? They don't really tell you too much about how they're going to do it, which I think is pretty brilliant.
But they tell you
So they show up.
The security that is
stuff.
being used, just like in Sneakers when they go through like what they need to do. So you don't know like how they're going to do it, but you know like what they need to not do, basically, if that makes sense.
Right.
So there's
Right. So it's
all kinds of
it's like basically like laser sensors, temperature differential. If anyone steps in there and the body heat of that person makes the room rise, obviously retinal scanning, all the typical high security like kind of stuff. So they find ways to get around all of that, and pretty interesting how they do it. I mean, we can talk about it maybe because it's kind of like the biggest scene in the whole movie. And all centers around this one guy who I think what is that guy's job? Just to sit in that room and like be on that computer all day that has like 5 files
to like monitor. I think he's like guarding it kind of, or like making sure no one steals it or something. But like he's allowed to go on lunch coffee breaks.
Yeah,
and nobody's
exactly.
around. And if he gets sick and yaks in his trash can, he's just like, "Oh, I'll be right back." Like, what is the security? So
I mean, I guess it's like the odds of. They make it so like airtight. It's basically like a giant safe, this room, but there are ways to get in, which is like, it's always the, what do you call it? The
air vents or
above
ducts or
air
whatever,
vents. It's always the air vents.
Yeah.
Like you need to have air vents in any place to like circulate air and air conditioning and heat or whatever. So that's always how they get in. So they're able to like finagle their way in there through various ways, and we can talk about it later. And then it's this very famous scene where you have Tom Cruise suspended via like a bungee like pulley system over this computer, and he ends up being able to download the necklace onto a drive, and then they get out of there like pretty scot-free. It's an amazing scene. We'll talk about it. And they go to London. So they go to London and they make a plan to coordinate a rendezvous with Max and get the money. But at the same time, she's also going to produce the real Job, which again, I'm unclear like how that was supposed to happen. I agree. That's not really explained that well. In the meantime, Ethan has figured out by looking at a Bible. This is how he figures it out, right? He's doing his like Job stuff because he keeps using the scripture or whatever from the Bible to like write back to Max. That's like his little thing he does. And he looks in the Bible and he sees the Drake Hotel. This Bible was placed by the Gideons at the Drake Hotel, Chicago. And that kind of rings a bell in his head because last time he heard about the Drake Hotel was when Jim was saying, he wasn't able to be in their mission in Kiev, which was in the very beginning of the movie, because he was on some company thing. And they're like, what hotel did you stay at? Oh, and like they say the Plaza or something like that. I don't know. And he's like, no. They put me up at the Drake Hotel. And Ethan's like, that's weird. What is this Bible in? And because they were in Kiev, remember? Why would there be a Bible from the Drake Hotel? Like, in Kiev, and he realizes that like the whole Job thing, like Jim took it from the Bible, that's his Bible, and he like took it with him from the hotel. That's like the connection he makes. It's kind of like fuzzy. I don't know if that's like super
but he's not
direct, but
I don't think at that point he's like want to know, like he gets it. I think he just like it's in his head, and then after he makes that phone call to Max, who should be in the phone booth next to him or whatever, but Jim Phelps. So then I think he starts, suspecting something. So Jim is like, tells some sob story like, oh, I fell over the bridge and I thought I was dead or whatever.
Well, no, he goes, I know who shot me. It was Kittredge. Like he just blames it on somebody else.
Right. So he's like, Kittredge is the guy. He's the one you want. Like, and like says all this like suspicious stuff. And meanwhile, Ethan, they cut to like Ethan kind of imagining scenarios in his head of like what really happened. So I will say like this part's a little confusing, and I think if you're not like paying super close attention, you would probably get like super confused, because they do like alternate versions of what could have happened, but they don't really specify that, because this is all happening in Ethan's head, and there's not like a narrator being like, but this is how it could have happened, like Clue. There's not like words on the screen like, or it could have happened like this. So he envisions like two possible scenarios, but mostly one main one, which is that Jim Phelps is the one that was the mole, and he killed Emilio Estevez's character in the elevator. He shot himself and then smeared fake blood on his hands, and then like fell over the bridge, and then either crawls out and looks at his watch that's still working and is like, oh, time to detonate the car bomb, and then does that. Or he thinks that maybe it was Claire who like detonated it from a distance, and then the other guy who I forget what his name is, the guy with the knife, what his character's name is, he was in on it too, because then he puts it, that guy has this like signature knife that actually falls from the ceiling in that good scene with the computer, and he puts it together that it's like the same knife that stabbed the fake mole, the fake spy guy and Sarah at the beginning. So he did that.
But I never got that one. Like, I thought, okay, I think it does have to be somebody else, because how could Jim be on the bridge and then doing that kind of murders? Mm-hmm. But why did the Sarah girl get killed? Because she clearly saw the guy who they thought was the mole, or whoever was stealing the necklace, get stabbed through the thing, and then goes close enough to get stabbed through a fence.
That part when he comes back and is like, oh, she's dead too. I was like, how the fuck did she die? Like, that didn't make it. Like, she's a trained spy. She wouldn't like be and
unless she knew that guy,
right? Which
she knew the French guy.
So
I don't think she did.
I mean,
that's why I thought it would make more sense if it was Jim, because if she was like, oh my God, Jim, and she came close to the thing and then like, knifed her. But I think it was the French guy, because you realize he's partners with Jim in the end. So that part never made sense to me. I'm like, what? How do you get stabbed through a fence?
And she's like, and why do you die instantly? It's like, I feel like you would bleed out for a while and, die later or whatever. But whatever. What do we know? We're not medical doctors. So Ethan pretends to like go along with this plan. Like, let's get back at Kittredge or whatever. And then he goes off and like, I don't know, clues in Claire on some plan and is like, let's set him up or whatever. Right. And then this is where I think it gets like doubly or triply confusing, because there's like three different like things that are happening that are also happening behind the scenes. Like, there's many levels of what's actually going on. So a few things happen. Kittredge gets like an envelope with train tickets to the high-speed train that goes between England and France, and is like
the TGV.
And so like he goes there, so he's like, okay, well, let's do this. And this is like typical Clueless, like head honcho guy who just like gets where he is because he follows or like steals other people's ideas, or like doesn't really know what he's doing. And then Max is on this train. So this is the same train that like Ethan's going on to meet up with Max to get the money and to meet Joe. So Kittredge is on the train. Ving Rhames is on the train. Max is on the train. Claire's on the train. She sees Kittredge on the train. She's like, Ethan, Kittredge is on the train. And then Ethan's like, Job's in the luggage compartment or whatever. So he gives Max the knock list. And then you only hear Ethan's voice. You don't see him, which is, I guess, another, if you go back and watch this, you're like, oh, now I get it. And then Claire gets to the luggage compartment, and then she's like, I don't think we should kill Ethan. And she sees who she thinks is Jim Phelps, like sitting there, like waiting to kill Ethan Hunt. And then for the third time in the movie, they pull off his fake, unbelievably realistic looking Jim Phelps mask and unveils Ethan Hunt. So he's like, ha, caught you red-handed. So he knew that like she was involved. So basically you're like, okay, like how long did he know that like these people were, that she was involved, I guess? Because it to me seemed like he was on the fence about it. And maybe this was just a way to like solidify that theory, I guess.
Well, I mean, as soon as he found out that Jim was alive, he should have been put two and two together and being like, well, that's
Right.
weird. And Claire didn't die either. Like, I feel like that should have sent it. But he had such feelings for her. And, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
She was very, like, right. Because then Jim talks about all his, like, charms that Claire has. And that's why he kept,
Trusting,
he had
trusting her,
kinda.
and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. So then the real Jim Phelps, like, rushes out from the luggage compartment in like a creepy black like jumpsuit thing with like very Jon Voight looking outfit. And then there's like some banter back and forth, like blah blah, you've coveted my wife, like we said, stupid, doesn't make sense. And then there's some tussle, and then he shoots his wife Claire, and then runs out the top of the train. Ethan follows, and then there's a helicopter, and that French guy is driving the helicopter, and Jim Phelps is supposed to like jump off the train and make his getaway with the money. Ethan had given him the money is the other thing that happened.
Right.
So then there's this whole like action. So this is pretty action sequency, but it's not like, you wouldn't be like, oh, this is a real stunt. Like, it just looks like they're in a studio with like a high-speed fan, is probably what happened, versus other Mission Impossibles where you're like, oh, he really did drive that motorcycle. And
No,
and
it was real. They really used the train.
a high-speed train.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
I don't think so.
They were
They
able
put
to do
Jon
it. Yeah.
Voight on a high-speed train.
No, I think the Tom Cruise part, I think they were able to do.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see the making of that. I don't buy it, but yeah. So there's that, and then he like hooks the helicopter onto the train, and then it gets pulled into the tunnel, and it's like still flying, and there's like this little English train conductor guy who's like in the caboose, like, what the fuck is happening? He's my favorite character. And
Could that really happen?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how big that
Mythbuster, like,
was. That the channel that they were in, or was that just a
no,
tunnel?
I think it was just a regular tunnel, because tunnel's pretty long. But yeah, I don't know if that could really happen. But yeah, great action scene that I actually confused with the speed action scene, because I put in my notes, this is where Jon Voight gets beheaded. And then when he doesn't get beheaded, I was like, oh, no.
So I was going to say, so remember when we watched Speed, we both had this false memory that Jeff Daniels died in the beginning of the elevator scene. And like this whole, like our whole lives, we thought that scene ended with Jeff Daniels dying. And that's what like jilted Keanu Reeves into like, this whole thing. And then now watching this, I'm like, oh my God, we mixed up both of those scenes in Speed with the scenes in Mission Impossible is what happened. So because that's how Emilio Estevez dies on the elevator at the beginning.
Right.
And then there's a train on the end. So it's like, oh, we must have just mixed them up. Yeah. I put that.
Yeah. So he doesn't die. He doesn't die that way. But so basically, like it's pretty cool. Like the Tom Cruise is able to, or Ethan gets onto the helicopter, so they're on both like kind of sides of the helicopter, Jon Voight and Ethan Hunt, and Ethan has that stick of gum again, the red and green one.
I swear he just had one. He had one stick, and then all of a sudden he's got a bonus stick. I don't buy it. A
bonus stick. So he puts two and two together, puts it on there, and the thing explodes, and luckily it like propels him onto the speeding train in front of him.
That's happened. I don't know why he thinks he can just use, or why they think you can just use bombs to like give you a boost. You're like, you're gonna blow up.
But then, unfortunately, Jim Phelps does not get that luck, because he gets thrown under the helicopter and basically like crushed underneath a flaming exploded helicopter.
Yeah,
I don't know. Seemed painful. And then Ethan is like on the train, and he's then like the blades of the helicopter are like still spinning and go like maybe an inch from his neck. So close. It was pretty great. And then they stop the train, and then Kittredge they get the knock list from Max, and they're not going to arrest her, but they're going to probably use her for some info she has on other arms dealers or whatever she does.
We forgot to say that Ethan captures Jim Phelps being alive, like on those glasses again, and like sends it. Another thing that he sent Kittredge in that envelope was like this watch, and the watch broadcasts this video of him. So he sees Jim Phelps alive and is like, oh, he's the mole. And so now Ethan's cleared, and that's all good. And then Ving Rhames is cleared because he helps them jam the signal that Max was trying to send the list off to someone else or whatever, or do some other bad things with it. I don't know, sell it to terrorists. And he like jams the signal or whatever. So they like reinstate Ving Rhames from being a disavowed agent to a real one again. And then Ethan's like, well, I'm done, guys. And then
Typical Ethan
goes home on the plane. And then who should come but the same stewardess who's like, would you like to watch a movie, Mr. Hunt? And then he gets his next mission. So like starting from this point on, is Ethan basically the Jim Phelps like of the new teams? Because I feel like but he obviously does more actual work, but like I feel like he's now the leader or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then there's a new Kittredge like every time. Like every movie basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's always like a weird dynamic. Like I said, there's always, it's not that they don't, they just like don't trust him, or they're always like I don't know. And there's always like some power dynamic with the higher people. It's kind of like the same themes, but you'd be surprised like how fresh and interesting it is every time, even if you like kind of do locate kind of the same themes. But really great franchise. And this one I think really starts it off well. I think it's still like super exciting. I think it's, like yes, it has like old computer technology, but it doesn't like stand out to me as like that bad. And I think maybe part of it is still like they have cool gadgets. So it's not, you're not like missing totally like the technology we have now.
I just don't understand this magic wand waving of like 90s computers where they just like type in what they want it to do and it just does it. He's like, Ving Rhames types like jam the signal, and then it's like, like what? Is that how computers work?
I know. I love it.
It's funny, but
I also like that the guy who had like the knockless computer, there was basically like 5 icon, like basically it was like a drop down of like all the important files he had. It was just like 5 of them. And it was like, oh, goody, knockless. Like it was like 5 things on that computer. Like it wouldn't be any more like,
why wouldn't they give it
encrypted
a code?
or hidden than that?
There's a lot of like, I think like CIA blips in this where you're like, I don't think like so. I mean, we can talk about.
And why would you make it downloadable or something?
Right.
Like you would make it to be like downloadable to a disc?
No, that doesn't make sense. And then there's like this part where Claire like sits really close to that guy like in the cafeteria, even though there's like 20 other open tables. And like you would be like, as someone who works in the CIA, wouldn't you be on like high alert for like suspicious things? And I guess part of it is that like she's so pretty that he's like, oh, she must be paying attention to me. But he really doesn't notice her until the very end. And I feel like she's just like uncomfortably close to him in that scene and like puts that little like tracking device on him and then like squirts the stuff in his coffee.
I mean, maybe this is like being too stereotypical, but that guy did not look like he should have that job. I'm just saying. He seemed. I mean,
how is that being stereotypical? He was dumb. He's like a dumb as it gets.
Yeah, like and maybe that's part of it. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm like unclear of what his job was. Like literally just to sit there in that room, like with that list. But anyway, so let's talk about favorite scenes. And there's really like for me, like kind of the two main ones, which I think are the 2 big action sequences, right? Mm-hmm. So we talked about the most famous scene in this, so which has become like quite iconic at this point, where this damn computer just keeps freezing. So they have to sneak in and steal this knockless. So their way of doing it is going to be basically to, as Sweetie was saying, so they pose as firefighters and they make all these false alarms go off in the building so they can go in. And then they are able to go into the air vents and then get above the room that has the computer that has the knockless. So as we said, it's this very like almost like vault-like room that is temperature controlled, has laser like fencing, or I don't know what you would call that, laser security like all over the vents. So like you have to shut those down. There's like a retinal scan to get in, like all this stuff. So they know they can't get in like the real way. They have to go through the air vents. And once the door closes, like the floor is all activated, so you can't put any weight on the floor. So they realize that they're going to have to suspend themselves. And it's going to be Ethan's job, and he's going to be like over the computer and doing it all from like suspension. So you have Claire as like the pretty, like innocent one going through and sitting next to the guy who, sits at that computer all day and using the magic pen. I was like the magic pen in Spy Biz. Like there's so many things that a pen can do,
right.
And like the, remember even the James Bond one where it was like a bomb,
GoldenEye.
the GoldenEye one. Yeah. So in this case, the pen holds something that gives you like horrible, basically makes you puke all day. I don't know what that is, but cool.
Don't want to take that.
So they put it in his coffee, and he like goes back, and he's like not feeling well. You can see he gets into the vault room. He's taking Tums and stuff, and all of a sudden he like is puking into a trash can. I mean, is there any worse noise than puking? And they are. Like, it's so loud and awful. I was like, sweetie, are you going to be okay? Did you feel ill? Sweetie has a puking phobia. I was very worried about you.
Everyone knows that I have a puking phobia now, guys. I mean, I knew it.
We've talked about
I knew
it.
it was coming because, I've seen this before. But so, I was prepared. They don't show anything like gross.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so bad as far as puke scenes. I'd rate it pretty low on the anxiety meter.
Yeah.
But it's still funny because he pukes in the trash can and then like picks it up and takes it out of the room into the bathroom. Like, oh, bless him. Bless him.
I know. He was kind of a really sweet guy. I hope he didn't get fired.
It reminded me of when you puked in my trash can in college, and I was like, get that out of here. I'll just take that into the bathroom and clean it right away.
And I did. Yeah, too many solely peach guys. Don't do it. So he's out of the room. So, okay, the room is clear. Now they can go in. So they have Ethan, like we said, suspended basically on like a bungee, like, what is that called? Like a belay system.
Carabiner.
And you have...
Yeah, belay. Belay
so
on.
you have like the guy, the French guy who's like, as I said, like the heavy on top, like in the air vent, only using his strength to like hold Ethan up, who probably weighs, I don't know, like 170
that guy didn't
pounds.
even look that strong or like heavy.
No,
like,
it was
Ving
crazy.
Rhames should
Right.
support him.
Oh yeah, so it's crazy. So it's very dicey. You can't have the room even heat up 1 degree. So they have this like thing that hooks onto the heating like system, whatever, that shows like to the 10th of the degree how much the room is heating up. So they can watch it and make sure. I don't know how you would like make sure it's not going up, but whatever. So they have all these close calls, and then the best close call is that a rat comes down the air shaft.
Wow, you've really changed.
Well, it's just so crazy. So the guy like flips out and is like, and you just see him like freaking out. I mean, is he scared of the rat? Like, why was he freaking out so bad?
He seemed scared of the rat. Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, I think he was scared of the rat. So he like freaks out and then basically like lets go of the rope holding Ethan up for like the belay, holding Ethan up for a second just to literally put his hand down to crush the rat, to literally kill it with his
I thought he
bare
killed
hand.
it with the knife or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know if he could like grab the knife, whatever. So Ethan goes down to the bottom of the ground and stops within like an inch of it. If he had touched the ground, all the alarms would have gone off. And he's like swimming and like, wow, what core strength you must have to like hold yourself up like above the ground like that. So he's there for like a couple minutes, also sweating. So any sweat that drops on the ground, like that's gonna like make the alarms go off too. Anyway, it's this very, very intense scene. You're just like biting your nails. You're like, I mean, you know they're gonna get out, but like you don't, whatever. And then the guy comes back. He's done puking after several rounds of puking, and they're able to like get him up. And they, the sound is factored in here too. So the rope's making all this noise, and it's making the sound go. So it's like all these different factors. They finally get up there. Ethan hands the guy the disc, and then he goes to take it, and his knife comes out of his hand. I don't know if he was holding it or whatever, and goes down and like lands straight up, like right on the computer table. So when the guy comes in after puking, like the room seems fine, but all he sees is this knife like sticking straight up. But it's too late because they're able to like get out of there with the knockless. But what a scene. Oh my God, I love it. I could watch that scene like all day. So good. So good.
Iconic picture of Tom Cruise hanging like in that like slant. Good stuff.
Oh, so good.
And what was your other one?
And then my second one is the train scene, and we've already talked about it, but like that really stuck out for me as a little kid from the craziness of it, obviously. But like and then when you watch this franchise, they use that mask gag like. Oh, and they explain it a little better. This one is they don't explain it. They just
from
like
the TV. That was like the signature thing in the aside from this tape will self-destruct. I think the masks was like another big thing of the TV show, right? So that's why they always like incorporate it somehow.
Oh, definitely. But in the other ones, they explain how they do it. Like it's a little bit more like a computer program that makes like a 3D printing of the mask and like whatever
of someone's
face.
But
this one they don't. They they just show up with like the mask and like the Jon Voight Tom Cruise one is like okay because your body types are like completely
so
different.
The difference though in the mask is that the first two are not people that are like based on someone real. I think is the difference. So you're like, oh, they just got a mask and put it on Tom Cruise, which is they're both really creepy. The mask that Tom has on in the first two times that this happens, he looks like a sick old man whose like skin is like peeling off his face.
So that was a real guy because that was like a real senator that he was pretending to be at the embassy. Remember? Yeah.
But then
he does use it.
Then like
just
later
to be the fireman
after they do the Wait, the senator. Wait, now I'm mixing up. Wait, the senator and the senator was before the fireman, though. The fireman was to get into Langley.
Yeah, but that was just whoever.
That was a real. Oh, so there's 4 masks then, because there's the one in the very beginning with the guy, the spy guy.
Yes,
and then the
but
senator.
That looked really just like Tom Cruise with like a mustache,
and it looked creepy. And then the senator one looked like a real person, I guess, to start with, but then when they're in the elevator shaft, because I think it's like right before he rips it off his face, it looks like really bad. He just looks like a saggy Tom Cruise old man, like weird mask. And then so you're like, okay, but those all seem like masks. And then the Jon Voight one happens, and you're like, okay, that's not a mask. Like, fool me. Like that is definitely you didn't make that mask. It's too good of a mask.
Totally.
There's no way. There's no way. I'm sorry.
The fit is too good. I mean, a mask is one thing. You can't like change someone's like face shape,
facial structure, and like eyes. And it's
totally
crazy. And they do that.
But I do remember watching this and honestly being surprised. Like I was like, yeah. I mean, I was probably also like 12 years old, but I was like, whoa! Like, it's shocking if you've never seen it.
They did it again, and I think that to Mission Impossible's credit, they do find ways to like make this new again. Like in the third one, remember, he thinks his wife gets like shot, but they actually had put on a mask of like someone else on someone of his wife over someone else, and then he pulls the tape off her face, and like the skin comes off, and he's like, oh my god. So that's a good one. But then, it's mostly used for like disguises, right? Yeah. So, yeah. But that's iconic for sure. That's the thing that stuck out to me as well. Also, the fish tank scene, I always think of, which I always thought was in the second one for some reason. But so I was confused. But I don't, so we didn't talk about maybe you talked about your history. You saw this on TV for the first time? That's where you saw it? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
And when was that?
I want to say like I probably not that long after it came out, like a couple of years.
So I didn't see this for the first time until kind of recently. So like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I want to say, when, Sweetie and I have now become super fans of the Mission Impossible franchise. And I was like, I should watch those other ones. So I think I just like took a weekend and watched like the first one and the second one. Maybe try to rewatch the fourth one, which I think is still not that good. The Ghost Protocol one. I don't think we liked that one that much. It was really confusing. It was like way more confusing than usual, I feel like. So I didn't really grow up with this movie, but I did grow up with the it in popular culture. So I think it's valid, let's say. So I don't have like favorite scenes because I've only seen it twice.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the first scene too, where like all the people get killed, is like pretty
shocking,
pretty memorable too, and shocking too. Like I said, like that's a straight out the gate way to like start a movie. You know, like half the people die. Pretty shocking. Okay, So what was I going to say here? All right, let's go over the gadgets. Expector Gadget.
What were the other ones? Of course,
so
I remember.
good.
So we got the gum, which again, Emilio Estevez's character is like a computer whiz and makes gadgets.
And the gadget guy, yeah.
I feel like that was like
computer
a
whiz
budget.
gadget guy.
I think that was like a budgetary. Like they could have got another actor to play that, and they're like, "Oh, just make Emilio the cute guy."
Yeah.
So yeah, the gum, the pen with the thing. What else? Those like magnet things you use to like climb on, to like climb up walls and stuff.
So they have cool ways of tracking people. So the first one they have is like a spray. So she sprays like what looks like breath spray and the guy, and it makes like a yellow dot on his head. And then the girl who's the surveillance has these glasses where she can like see the guy in a crowded party with like the yellow dot the whole time. So that's kind of cool. And then when they're in Langley, there's like this tiny little tracker that she puts on him, the guy who like is the guy who does the garden knockless, that like tiny little tracker. And then they're able to like use that as like a little like GPS signal and track him through the whole building. So pretty cool with the trackers. All like the retinal scanning and like laser like stuff, security stuff. That's always like a pretty big deal. Glasses. So they had those camera glasses, which were really big in this one, where now that it doesn't seem that big of a deal, but it was basically just like a camera was in the lens. So like anything you saw could be like recorded or patched to like somebody else. And they always had like cool watches that would like, you could get all the feed from like either people's glasses or like whatever. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I think the gadgets like get better, as technology improves here, but
yeah, and they get like a little more far-fetched and like a little crazier and crazier with every movie, just like James Bond, I guess. But yeah, those are fun, super fun. Okay. I don't really, so I'm like reviewing my notes. I just took notes on the plot. So, what does IMF stand for, sweetie? Question for you.
IMF.
That's their
Is that
division.
their spy organization? Yeah. International.
Think of the movie title.
Mission.
Flip it. Impossible Mission Force or something.
Force?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I was like, Federation.
I like it.
No, I forget.
I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. Yeah, that's all.
Other thing I like about these movies is the international aspect to it. I think is like really big. So for this one, they don't go anywhere like too crazy, but it's like Kiev to Prague to Virginia. Whoop-de-doo.
Well, they do make like a
London and then like Paris, but other ones they go to like much like other places, and I think all the different cities are really fun to like see, and they're all so different, and
they create the illusion
that part's really
that
fun
you
to me.
can get to these countries in like the blink of an eye, right? They're always like, well, let's flee, and then they're like in London the next second, and you're like, wait, so they just they took a 7-hour plane ride or whatever and are now in London.
Well, I love when they and when he like pulled up his bag they were in the safe house, and he had like all that stuff, and he has like maybe like 12 passports from like all these different countries. How cool that must be. Be like, what do I want to be today?
And like another kind of plot hole, I guess I would say, is that like once the Kidridge people knew that the mission was compromised or whatever, and there was a mole, like didn't they know where the safe house was, this like hotel room, and wouldn't they have like swept that and like picked up all the stuff? Like, what is this flimsy organization? It's weird.
Yeah, and I think, like what you said before, it seems like there's always like the top people just seem to be like, they don't know what they're doing. They're just like managing spies. What you think of like a lot of managers, right? Like the people who do the dirty work like know what they're doing, but like then you have the people managing them who like don't have a clue about anything, and they're not real spies. And I feel like that's kind of like what the franchise always thinks, because you have more the administrative side of that organization, then you have the people actually doing the spying and being on the ground. So there's always that, real theme of that is this movie and this franchise is the distrust between the two. And like that I know in other movies they kind of move around, and he has good and bad relationships with whoever like the leader of Langley is. Like whatever the one where like Alec Baldwin is. Remember, it's like
Billy
I feel like he's like on his like that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing. So I guess if you know everything, I don't have too much else. There wasn't anything really good in the trivia, but they did list. Okay, I will just say that every time I see Jon Voight, I just cannot believe that like Angelina Jolie, that's his dad.
from him.
Every time I'm like, what?
I know.
So weird.
So dumb. So dumb.
Yeah, I'm just so confused. So there's these other men who they wanted to potentially play Ethan before they settled on Tom Cruise.
Was one Ethan Hawke?
So it's like, yeah, no, that'd be cool. So they went from George Clooney. Can't really see it.
He wasn't really super action-y
Yeah,
at this stage,
no,
right?
not at all. But they were like dead set on him, and then he did that movie One Fine Day.
I hate that
So
movie.
like, I know.
It's like everything possible that can go wrong goes wrong movie. Like it's just too stressful. It's too stressful.
I know. Bruce Willis. Okay, I think he doesn't have like the. Wouldn't be convinced that he's like that smart or something. I don't know. Like he doesn't have like that level of intelligence. I feel like
that he would speak 10 languages and like you're like
that he would be an international spy. I believe him as like diehard as a cop, but like I don't
because he's like
believe,
more down
like,
and dirty, rough around the edges, kind of.
Yeah. Okay, John Travolta, absolutely not.
No,
No
his
way.
head's too
Nicholas.
fat.
Oh, is that too fat?
I like him.
He couldn't fit any of the mask.
I can't picture that.
Okay, this makes me want to see now. Speaking of the mask and the flip face,
Face Off.
Face Off. I've
We
never
should watch
seen that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh man,
Nope.
that movie. Like the premise of that movie when I came out and I was like kind of little, I was like, what?
Really confusing. I think it's going to be too confusing because the whole time I'm going to be like, wait,
Oh my
what?
God.
And then it's like, who's the nice one? I'm like, wait, I'm just going to be doing that in my head all the time. Like, who's the good guy again? Okay.
Oh, crazy. Nicolas Cage.
Also,
Speaking of Face Off,
and then they both didn't get the part, so they were like, dude, let's make a movie together.
let's make a
Face
movie.
Off. And it
about
was
math.
probably a snub of Mission Impossible because they were like, we didn't get this role, so now we're going to make a movie
Totally.
about stealing each other's faces. Makes sense.
Rafe Fiennes, who, interestingly enough, ends up being the kind of admin person to James Bond in the James Bond franchise. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah. And Mel Gibson, lastly.
Right. Who is, Lethal Weapon was in his, definitely maybe could have, but also on this kind of same level as like, I don't know if he'd be smart enough I don't know if he could pull off the CIA top secret agent gig, let's say.
Right, exactly. Like it's really interesting. So it's like I just can't imagine like anyone else but Tom Cruise doing it. And it's like he just keeps doing it. Like it's still really good.
He'll break a leg, but he'll keep doing it. Keep coming back. He's crazy.
I know.
Fucking Tom
I know.
Cruise.
He's so crazy. I don't like that Scientology Tom, but I'm here for
The
you.
Mission
I'm here
Impossible,
for you
the
in this
acting
movie.
Tom is the one.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you, I made Jimmy watch Minority Report the other day, and we like love that movie so much, and that's another one
You
that's
and I do.
very similar to this.
You and I, not Jimmy.
Jimmy did not like it, but it's very same vein as this, right? And you just have that, basically the same thing. He's like running from the law and kind of these administrative
it's
people,
the
and has to
future.
figure out who did it. Yeah, it's just, man, that movie's so good. So I love Tom Cruise. I'm sad that he's like kind of a mess, but like if you ever read that Scientology stuff, I feel like there's a thing where they just keep him like so sheltered that like he doesn't know what's going on or something. I don't know.
I think he's just like a figurehead. Like I don't know like how much. Yeah. So interesting, but I think there is like creepy stuff about like finding him wives and things like that. So like whatever. We can enjoy his acting until he gets accused of molesting a child or something, and then
Exactly.
we'll get rid of him. But for now, I guess it's fine.
It's so many of our favorite films.
I know, but it has to happen. We got to make the cut. We got to make the cut, or people will keep doing it and expecting no repercussions. So yeah, anything else?
I think that's it. I had a good time tonight. I feel like this was a good choice. I think sometimes action movies can be
Calming.
equivalent to like a feel good.
I guess. Sure.
Yeah, because they always end like really well. It's a save the day kind of ending. It's not.
That's
it's
true.
like almost always a happy ending. So I'm here for it.
Cool. Okay. Well, do you like Mission Impossible? Come find us on Twitter at the Sweetie Club or on Instagram at Large Marge Santos. Thank you as always for listening. Bye.
Bye. Mission Impossible Rebirthers.